You are ready to go, Chair Kuznick.
Thank you so much. And welcome to the Planning Commission for March 15th. We're going to call the meeting to order at 7:02. And we will, prior to roll call, Assistant City Attorney would like to make an announcement to the Planning Commission regarding the teleconferencing of this meeting. So, Assistant City Attorney, Ms. Poon.
Thank you, Chair Kuznick. Prior to roll call, I would like to make clear for the record of this meeting and it should be reflected in the minutes that the governor has issued executive orders relaxing the requirements pertaining to remote meetings under the Brown Act. The executive orders authorize this Planning Commission to hold public meetings by teleconference during the COVID-19 crisis. I previously went over the specific provisions of the Brown Act that have been temporarily amended or suspended in order to allow for this meeting to take place by teleconference, and this meeting will comply with all such provisions. Madam Recording Secretary, it would now be appropriate for you to conduct roll call, after which I would ask the chair to recognize me in order to confirm certain matters for the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Edwards.
Present.
Commissioner Marks.
Here.
Commissioner Wallace.
Still here.
Vice Chair Alpert.
Here.
And Chair Kuznick.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
All right, back to you, Ms. Poon. You have more matters to confirm.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair Kuznick. I would now like to ask the chair, the vice chair, and the other commission members 3 questions. Rather than ask you to respond separately to these questions, I'll ask all 3. And if the answer is yes to all 3, please say yes and physically raise your hand. Question number 1, can you hear me well? Question number 2, have you been able to hear all previous speakers, including the roll call, clearly? And question 3, are you satisfied based on facial or voice recognition or otherwise that everyone here representing themselves to be a commission member is actually the person they are representing themselves to be? Looking for hands and yeses, please.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you. Seeing all hands raised, the record should reflect that I received affirmative answers from each commission member present to all 3 questions, that all commission members have indicated they are able to hear each other and these proceedings clearly, and no commission member has expressed doubt that each and every commission member participating by teleconference is in fact the commission member they are representing themselves to be. And finally, I would now like to advise the chair and the commission members and the recording secretary that any votes taken during the teleconference portion of this meeting must be taken by roll call. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much. All right. We'd like to ask our recording secretary to lead the commission in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to item 4, which is public comment or written communications. If you wish to speak under public comments, you may click the raise your hand button on your computer or *9 on your telephone to request to speak when public comment is being taken. You will be unmuted and allotted 3 minutes to speak, after which time you will then be remuted. At this time, members of the public may address the Planning Commission on any item not already included in tonight's agenda. So we will open public comment and then ask if we have had any written communication or people wishing to speak on items not on the agenda.
Great, thank you. We did receive 1 general written comment from Farouk Kodadati, and this comment was provided to commissioners prior to tonight's meeting.
Very good.
Thank you. And at this time, I'm just going to take a look and see if we have anyone who would like to speak on any item not included on tonight's agenda. And I do not see any hands raised. Okay.
Very good. We will close the public comment on items not on the agenda. And then we move to the items of approving the minutes. So do we have a motion to approve the minutes for our last meeting?
So moved.
Oh, sorry. If we could just go through, I think there's a few more items we skipped.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm not there yet. I'm just dashing onwards. All right. I apologize. All right, item 5, additions and revisions. Is there anything that needs to be added or revised? Okay, no items.
No item.
Item 6, the consent calendar. We have none. Item 7.1, the approval of the Planning Commission regular meeting of March 1st. Now, Commissioner Mark,
I'll move approval.
thank you very much. Is there a second?
I will second.
Very good. All right.
Great, thank you. So we had mover Commissioner Marks,
Aye.
seconder Vice Chair Alpert,
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards,
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace,
Aye.
and Chair Kuznick.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Item 7.1 passes.
Thank you very much. Okay, item 8, continued items after closing a public hearing. We have none. So we will move to item number 9. Continued the public hearing on the West Side Specific Plan Amendment and El Nido Senior Assisted Living Project. And we will hear from Senior Planner, Miss Cindy Yee.
Through the chair, if I might,
Yes.
as I have with all other matters related to this project, I will be recusing myself due to a conflict of interest. And so I will reconnect with the commission when we get to item 9.2. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay.
All right, so I don't have a formal presentation prepared this evening or PowerPoint. I will just briefly go over a summary of the staff report in your packet this evening. Last we left off on February 15th. We were in the middle of our posting period for our initial study and mitigated negative declaration for the project. That period ran from February 7th through March 8th. We did receive a number of written comments as well as speakers that addressed the CEQA document at the February 15th meeting, and comments that were received. We've provided a response to those comments in your packet, Exhibit C. In addition to the environmental document, there were 3 questions that were raised at the last public meeting on February 15th. Those are addressed in the staff report related to the bike lanes, as well as providing copies of the original architecture review project plans, a request for more information on the location of trash facilities. And so those are addressed in the staff report. I can certainly go over those in more detail if you need me to bring up any of the plans for those. But at the conclusion of February 15th meeting, there were no additional comments or raised from the commission related to the specific plan and any requested changes to the text that's proposed. And so this evening we've provided as an attachment, should the commission deem appropriate, we've provided a resolution that would recommend the to the City Council the review of the specific plan amendment and recommending adoption of the specific plan as well as the associated CEQA. We are also requesting, because the development entitlement applications are running a different and separate track from the specific plan, that we would also continue the public hearing to May 3rd to continue the public hearing review of the entitlement applications. And so with that, I'll just introduce the applicant again. Sohail Siddiqui is available to answer any questions. I don't believe he's prepared a formal presentation, but if he'd like to just say a few words to address the commission, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Sohail if there's no other questions for staff.
Thank you, Cindy. Good evening, commissioners. It's a pleasure to again be in front of you to respond to any questions you may have. As Cindy said, we don't have any prepared presentation, but Cindy, if I could ask you to elevate Ed Nowak, my architect, and Kara Brunzel, who is online as well. She's the one who did the sort of the historical analysis of our project and the impact of that. So it will be good for her to be present and answer any questions the commissioners might have. We did review all of the responses that you have prepared for the MND, and we are in full agreement with all of those. So with that, I'll just turn it over back to you. And we are here to answer any questions the commissioners might have.
So Hal, if you don't mind, so I don't see Ed Novak, but I have a Judy Novak. If maybe he's using her account, I'll go ahead and bring her in.
Yes.
And then you said, what was the other name? Was it
Kara, K-A-R-A, Kara, last name Brunzell, Brunzell.
Perfect, got it. So those two have been invited into the panelists, so they should be joining us shortly.
Great.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, commissioners, do we have any questions for applicant and his team before we move on? Okay, seeing none. All right, thank you. All right, so at this point, what we're going to do is we are going to go to the public comment. So we're going to open public comment and ask if we have any speakers or written public comment.
Thank you. Yes, we did receive two late written communication items after the agenda was posted. One was from Jim Blickenstaff and the other from Rachel Doty. These comments were provided to the planning commissioners prior to the meeting.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right, and during the meeting, if you wish to speak under public comment, you may click the raise your hand button on your computer or the *9 on your telephone. You do have the full 3 minutes. And if you go over, we will try to help you wrap it up, but we do ask that you make your comments to the 3 minutes. All right, Jennifer, who do we have?
All right, thank you. So we're going to start from the top here. We have Greg Carr.
Okay.
And you can go ahead and speak whenever you're ready.
I have unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Yes, this is Greg Carr. I've lived here for a long time. And what I would like to do through the chair, Jean, I would like to speak to the people who are residents in the immediate area of the project.
Go ahead.
So to those residents, I urge you to be objective about your opposition to this project. You have to think about the city is not going to purchase this as a park because they don't have the funds and it doesn't fit the envelope for parks. If you want to buy it for a park, that'd be great because it would be a nice park, but you're going to have to pay for it because it already has an entitlement to medium density residential. And what's happened for those of you who have placed votes for certain people in the state government's come down and it has basically given open season to developers to come in and construct things that will fit in the bounds of the zoning parameters that the city's placed, but then they can ask for extra things. Density bonus, which means more units, perhaps even higher buildings. And a special one here is that they can probably get away with less parking spots per unit. And so what the state is trying to do is cram as much housing into as much space as they possibly can. And what you can face if you don't try to accept this low-key project that is being proposed, and it is low-key, it's going to be occupied by a lot of folks my age and older who aren't in the condition, to yell and have big parties and stand up and speak loudly. And it'll be a low-key, quiet thing. The alternative is going to be something where you're going to have cars parked in front of your homes. You're going to have increased traffic, and it's just going to be a terrible thing for you. Now, in a perfect world, a park would be nice, and I'm certainly for that. But it's not a perfect world. It's the state of California. You voted for them, and here's what you're getting. So I would urge you to consider accepting this project and thanking Mr. Siddiqui for not having some out-of-town developer come in and shove too many houses and too few parking spaces down your throats. Okay, thank you, Chair Kuznick.
Thank you so much, Mr. Carr.
All right, great, thank you. So we'll go ahead and move on to our next speaker. We have Farouk Kodadadi. And whenever you're ready.
Yes. If you can hear me, I want to thank you for the opportunity to voice my opposition. In general, I'm not against the senior care home in a commercially zoned corner of town. However, I am adverse to rezoning what has historically been a residential zone into commercial. The homeowners of Greystone Ranch have invested hard-earned money, and now suddenly rezoning their neighborhood into commercial is like pulling the carpet from under your feet, and that's just not fair. And I don't have anything against Mr. Siddiqui personally, or the fact that he has this project proposed. But I think that going in, he should have known that he's buying a property that has historic significance. In terms of preservation, I don't feel that what is proposed really is preservation. This is a salvage proposal. Preservation has a deeper meaning, and it's beyond the scope of a 3-minute that I'm allotted. But if you look at the package that you have provided, this is a part of your agenda, your own documentation. You look at page 14, it shows a pristine historical image of what this house is. And standing alone, it presents itself as a historical artifact. And then if you flip through to page 19 through 21, you basically see it as a hood ornament attached to the front end of a monstrous structure. That is no longer preservation. That's, for lack of a better word, it's a destruction of a historical item. And a note to the outsiders outside of this area who support this, I would ask you to consider how you would feel about this if this was proposed next to your property, next to your house, or across the street, or across the way from your bedroom window. And would you still call in and be supportive of it? Probably not. It's easy to throw a stone across town and pass judgment on other people, but you really need to do this responsibly as a citizen, as your vote counts towards not just your will, but everybody else who lives in San Ramon. Again, thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you for your comments. All right. And our next speaker is Christian Bucci, or Bucci.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. My name is Christian Bucci, and I'm here representing Century Oaks Group, and I would like to address members of the Planning Commission. We did submit written comments today by Rachel Doty, as was noted. We'd like to highlight two specific things. The impact on the City of San Ramon's park objectives that will be impacted by this amendment. Century Oaks Group is concerned with the impact from the West Side Specific Plan Amendment and its impact on removing a park from their community, potential for a park from their community. Members of Century Oaks Group wish to preserve and make use of parks in their community. The project location is currently zoned as park in the West Side Specific Plan. San Ramon's general plan requires, quote, a ratio of 6.5 acres of public parks per 1,000 residents, with a goal to have park and recreation facilities within 1/2 mile of all residents, as in the San Ramon General Plan 11-45. This project proposed to change the zoning of the only park designated parcel west of Doyle Highway in the southern end of the city. In doing so, the city abandons any reasonable opportunity to add a neighborhood park to that end of the city. The proposed project is inconsistent with the city's general plan, which clearly intends for there to be an equitable distribution of a variety of parkland across the city. Residents near the parcel under consideration must traverse a major highway to reach a neighborhood park. Further, rezoning the project location from park to residential will result in residences which currently are within 1/2 mile of park designated property to no longer be within 1/2 mile. And because the area is already substantially developed, there will be no opportunity to rectify the situation later. The city of Ramon is not currently meeting its overall park objectives in terms of total acreage or distribution, and there is a table in our written submission. Removing the designation from the park location moves San Ramon further from its goals. Our second point, City of San Ramon needs to complete an environmental impact report. A mitigated negative declaration is inappropriate for this project. Deciding to abandon neighborhood park goals for the southwestern side of the city will have effects not examined in the MND. For instance, vehicle miles traveled at a minimum must be considered, as it is reasonable to expect that residents of this portion of the city will now travel to neighborhood parks by car. Also, if the project does not represent illegal spot zoning, then it represents a significant amendment of the city's parkland goals and objectives and must be considered as such. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. And our next commenter is Anthony DeAngelis.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Firstly, thank you for according us the 3 minutes this time around for those of us who need it. Now, I have been opposed to this project from the first hearing, and I'd like to again state my objection to the project. I'd like to first deal with the suggestion, actually the overt threats of alternative developments being forced upon residents. It does seem to be the case that there is a deep state in existence, and if us, the residents who are opposed to this project, do not accept this development, we are threatened with something else being built. I think this whole thing is wholly inappropriate and out of character with what the Planning Commission and the City Council is supposed to do where public hearings are concerned. Now, this matter is really purely about converting a designated parkland to accommodate a commercial undertaking. And there's nothing more to it than that. A vast majority of the residents here are opposed to the project. And I can say this with all certainty. I would like to invite the City Council to come to this area, conduct a poll themselves, objectively, independently, and actually assess for the people living around this area as to how many are opposed to it and how many are for it. Those who are calling in for it are, in all likelihood, in vast majority of them are not living around this area, and that is inappropriate. The reason as to why we are opposed to this is that it is out of character with the neighborhood. Now, on the matter of the preservation, I know people before me have spoken to it as well. There's absolutely nothing benevolent or altruistic in the efforts of the developer to restore the Harlan House. It is nothing but a ruse, a front for the commercial undertaking. Now, I'd like to conclude by stating that I really hope that the Planning Commission will look at the interest of the public, and in this case, the neighborhood, before arriving at its decision. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have our next commenter is DB Liu. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the chance to speak. I heard the first speaker was talking about alternatives being a lot worse, but I happen not to think so. I think that's a threat, common to a threat. And this is basically 84-bed commercial facility on such a small parcel of land, which is only 3 times of my land size. I don't think it's appropriate. So I want to voice my strong and undeniable opposition to this project. I think the better way, I have nothing, of course, against the developer, and I don't know him very well, but I have nothing against Siddiqui, Mr. Siddiqui. So the best way, I think, is for you to withdraw the application. And I think the community will thank you. And, probably we can actually all treat you to a nice dinner in San Ramon. Thank you.
Thank you. And it looks like our last hand up is TW. And again, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand now so we have an idea of how many speakers we'll have this evening. So we're bringing in TW, and you can speak when you're ready.
Thank you. It's a privilege to have an opportunity to share my thoughts. First of all, I do live in the relatively immediate area. Finally, there is a public park that is owned by the city of San Ramon within line of sight of the subject property. In fact, it's almost immediately to the west. I'm not sure, I think it's somewhere between 10 and 20 acres of land that is zoned for public park. I don't know any detail about its being developed into a park. And then, of course, there is a park to the immediate north over off Bollinger, and there's a park off of West Side, just to the immediate south of that area. However, my interest in this was when my own elderly mother was looking for a facility near our home, and we could not find one. We couldn't find a single bed. We ended up putting her in a facility, a very nice facility in Pleasanton, California. And she lived out her life there. The point is that we talk about ratios for parks to houses, but what we also need to take into account is that we have thousands of elderly San Ramon residents that have to leave our own community to find the facilities they must have as their health needs decline, but they do need a lovely place to live that's safe and appropriate and convenient for their children and their grandchildren to come visit. Again, I support this project. I thank you for this opportunity to share my thoughts.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Zoom user.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Esme Georgiades. I am a longtime resident of this neighborhood. And like the speakers before me, I am strongly opposed to this development. I do not believe that it's fitting in this environment in our neighborhood. I'm not opposed to any kind of facility like this elsewhere where it's fitting, but to try and cram it onto this little lot. And I believe that we are being somehow threatened by, if we're opposed to it, it's the alternative is XYZ. I don't think that that's fair to the residents that are opposed to it. I don't feel like our voices are being heard. And I hope that the city council and I hope that the planners take into consideration the residents and the neighbors in this area that it's going to affect. This is not zoned for business development. I think this is just wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker we have is Caitlin DeAngelis.
Hi, sorry, that's actually my daughter's iPad. My name is Dora Danielle, and I live along Centennial Way, and I'm opposed to this project. It is out of character with the neighborhood. The whole thing about the elderly being inconvenienced if there were no facility here is taking things a bit too far. It lacks credibility, especially since, if I'm not mistaken, there's one coming up next to the city center and one on Norris Canyon. So if you insist on having one on this side, I mean, you're talking about a 5-minute drive down. So if there's two coming up there, I don't see why we need another one here, especially in a residential area where so many of us are opposed to it. So I just want to say that I'm against it, I'm opposed to it, and I don't see a reason for having one here when there's two more coming up on the other side. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sandeep Dakras.
Hello, Sandeep here. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm opposed to this proposed construction. Said this many times before and I'll repeat. It seems to be too large a plot, too large a construction for this plot. Just to achieve the project, there are several amendments being put in place. I'm simply not comfortable with such a congested development in the neighborhood. I feel the Planning Commission needs to review all the development happening around. As someone has mentioned, and it's available in the packet today as well, some of the current commercial plots are being converted into residential plots, and some of the residential plots are being used or designated for 24/7 commercial kind of operations. I strongly oppose this project, can't highlight that enough. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Andrea Corey.
Hello, hi. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak. I just wanted to underscore my opposition to this project as well. And I really think it's important to consider that what the original city planners had to balance the parks and green spaces, and this project completely goes against that. And I live right in the area, and in regards to the proximity of parks, we need more parks and green spaces, and those are being pushed out here in San Ramon. And also, not to mention the fact that this is definitely really sad for a historic property of this caliber to be completely not restored in the way it should be restored. And that is a big issue in regards to the way this applicant has proposed his restoration is not really what the restoration should be. In addition to that, I agree with the past speaker who just a few minutes ago who highlighted that there are many other areas for development of senior communities. I agree that senior communities are important to our city, but there are many that are already being slated for development. And this one specifically on a busy street is not an appropriate, and it's a very dangerous location for such a facility as well. And also very much against the size of this being a commercial property in a residential area. It's just not an appropriate place for such a facility. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have San Ramon resident. You can speak when you're ready.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for allowing us to speak for 3 full minutes, unlike the last meeting where you robbed us of 1 full minute. I oppose this project, just like many have mentioned before me. I live in the immediate area of this proposed project, and I like to highlight some points, responses rather. We are not against senior facilities. We are against commercial senior facilities in residential areas. For the gentleman who had trouble finding a facility for his elderly mother, I'm sorry to hear that. However, we have Bishop Ranch, we have additional assisted living facilities that are coming online They're all appropriate, well thought out plans because they did due diligence before they purchased the property. They were not blinded by financial greed. They did assessment of how would this play out. There was no historic property on those commercial land. So those projects are going through smoothly because there are professional developers. This is an amateur hour. The developer has mentioned that this is going to be a preservation, and clearly it's not going to be a preservation because the application itself states demolition. So the proposal is to demolish it, save the staircase, maybe some planks on the outside, rebuild it as a shrine, as an honor to the Harlan House, and that's not correct. My other comment, the last meeting, Commissioner Marks proposed a preposterous suggestion at the end of the meeting, which was very troubling. For meeting after meeting after meeting, the opposition has stated, this project is too big. It doesn't fit the neighborhood. It will impact traffic and parking. A light bulb went off with Commissioner Marks and said, hey, we may run out of parking here. So his solution, rather than doing his job and sending this plan back to the developer for revision, is to take out bike lanes from the surrounding areas so it could spill out to City Street. Why don't we just take our front yards? Why don't we just sign over the front yards so the developer could park the cars in our driveway? That's a good idea. Why don't you just come park in my garage? I'll just move my car out, go ahead and park in the garage. When will you guys stop with overreaching? This project does not belong here. We will oppose it to the very last minute, including a lawsuit. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Michelle.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Great, thank you so much for this opportunity to allow us to voice our opinion on this project. I definitely oppose this project. I moved to Centennial over a year ago, and I live right by this project. And I was never notified that this was even a possibility that this would be being built here. But I can tell you for myself that I too had a senior mother that needed housing. She had memory issues, and she escaped from her house 3 times, 2 different facilities. So I can tell you right now, I would never put my mother in a house on a busy street right off of San Ramon Valley Boulevard. She has now passed away, but I can tell you that putting a senior facility anywhere near a busy street is a disaster waiting to happen. They get out, they want to walk, it's dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. Also, I can agree that, you know, he has this land, the park, who knows if that will ever happen, but at least respect the community here and put in something that is similar to what we have here. We have townhomes, put in a couple more townhomes. I don't object to building or expanding, but that area is not set up for a senior home facility of that magnitude. I hope that the city will please listen to all of our appeals of all the things that we have to give up, like the bike lanes. I mean, these poor kids ride their bikes to school. Really? There was just an accident, I think about a couple of weeks ago, right there on San Ramon Valley Boulevard. This is crazy that we have to sacrifice everything. We've paid good money for our homes, and we had hoped to have a safe, nice environment and community to live in. And now somebody wants to go develop here and destroy what is here. So I hope that the city will consider at least having something that matches what we have in this area. And as other speakers had mentioned, there are other projects and senior homes being built in the area. This is just not the correct location. I hope that you can hear our distress over this project. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Jim Blickenstaff.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. Yeah, in addition to my brief comment in the letter, I wanted to take a perspective here that maybe is a little different. I've looked at this issue closely, and from both sides of a legal question, and it's an open question. So I kind of keep waiting to see some collaboration, cooperation between the city and the residents about a good solution. And all I hear now, very legitimate concerns about upset to the neighborhood. I understand that, but that's half the question. The other half of the question is, what is the alternative? This Harlan House is marginally in a dilapidated state, and it will soon be irrelevant as far as a historic site. So you're going to have that as a question that's going to solve itself. And so I want to see, maybe the Planning Commission can put off a definitive judgment on this for a short time so that the city can talk with the residents about a solution that looks at the ultimate outcome for the property, rather than having one legal side say it's going to stay park and the other legal side say it's going to be forced into housing because the state is just taking over cities, which is true. Both those sides have a lot of truth to them. And it makes me nervous to throw this in that open question, in that arena of doubt, and end up with something that is possibly worse. It might be status quo. It might just continue to be a rundown park for a while, but that really isn't a solution. So I'd like to see people that have legitimate emotional concerns about it take a step back and look at the broader picture of what is their solution. What do they want to see a cooperative effort with the city for this park to end up being a viable park? Right now, there's no money for it. Maybe there's a cooperative money raising effort, but you have to do something to solve the other half of the equation of what becomes of it. It's just going to go continue to be dilapidated and marginal, and nothing ever happens, and it's not even a park. That's not a solution. So this was one solution. I think if the architecture is done correctly, it blends in very nicely with that historic architecture. And there is a preservation to that house that happens in terms of preserving the image and the quality of that time period. The Historical Society for San Ramon said so, and some others have said so. So there's different ways to restore houses. But I just say, let's look at this in a broader lens and see, okay, what kind of positive solution can come out of this besides just saying this project is not what the neighbors want. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Madhu Panthalingal.
Hi there, you can hear me, I guess.
Yes.
Hello, Planning Commission members. I'm a resident living at the very adjacent property from Harlan House. Again, to reiterate what I said last time, I'm not against housing or amenities for seniors. We understand we need that, and we wholeheartedly support that goal. My feeling is that this project fails due to numerous reasons which have been discussed in the past similar engagements. The zone change is not consistent with any applicable comprehensive plan for the area. The question to be asked is there a need for this zone change? San Ramon has better locations for providing quality living for our seniors or needy. The zone change will not be consistent with surrounding areas, and considering variances just to skirt the core issue and give an approval for this development will not be an apt move by the commission. I see this as a multiple use project. Let me reiterate, this is a multiple use project. The reason I say is, I mean, of course, the developer is selling it as a medium density residential. To me, this is a care facility and a commercial kitchen to support the residents. A commercial kitchen, just note that. This needs to be looked into thoroughly, because when there is anything commercial in there, then there are other variances that has to be looked into as well. Though I see land use code modifications is necessary, in certain cases, this development in particular does not qualify for land use code amendment. Any decision the commission makes, I would urge you to keep one thing in mind: decisions you come to today will become a precedent for similar situations in future. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Patricia Boom.
Yes, this is Patricia Boom.
I understand that there are a lot of concerns about people who are living around the area, and they are concerned about the fact that we who are speaking about it in some cases don't live in the area. Well, let me give you an example. I had a situation where I needed to live in a particular location. I didn't have a choice. The location was next to a facility. This facility was a crematorium. It's where they cremated bodies. Now, just thinking about that, you think, okay, there's a lot of smell, there's a lot of smoke, there's a lot of stuff going on, and you don't want to be anywhere near that. Well, it was very landscaped. In all the 3 years that I lived right next to it, there was no smoke, there was no smell, there was nothing but the landscaping. And that's what I enjoyed for the time. So I have an experience with what those who are living near an area, they don't want something to come in. I didn't have a choice. And I lived there for 3 years. It was okay. It worked fine. As difficult as it is to look at something new, be careful what you ask for, because my concern has to do with Senate Bill 330, which will take a look at this because the general plan and the specific plan aren't connected. They aren't the same. And if that general plan is changed from housing to a park, which might never happen, the state will come in and take over. And that is my concern about what is going to happen to that area. You're going to get something that you're not going to have an input in. The city is behind housing by 10 years. And if they don't get the housing that meets the state, then there's going to be a problem. And this is where my concern is. Decide what it is. Do you want housing there, multifamily housing, or this project that's coming in? That's something that's going to have to be looked at thoroughly. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Iram. You can speak whenever you're ready.
Hi, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, great. Good evening. Thank you so much for your time and for those who are sharing their concerns today. I wanted to share my understanding as a resident within the immediate area of the project. I feel the project does not fit. I feel like this developer had moved specifically from a neighboring area for a reason, knowing that this project also does not fit within the character of his perception of the neighborhood. And I feel like that says a lot. And some of us don't have the option to move. We can't just pick up where we're at and go somewhere. And the majority of us here also have elder family in our homes, or we have small children, and we have some sort of extended family surrounding us. So I think the idea that the neighbors don't want an assisted living facility here is sad to say, because that is very much untrue. We have shared quite a lot of opposition, including in the last hearing, there were 160 of those who opposed. We had, I want to say, close to 30 people who also voiced their public opinions. And I feel that these are not being taken in. And instead, we're being accused of such things otherwise. And we're also told that other developments can come in. We have made some suggestions. I mean, for example, to keep it as a park, which is the current designation, to make it similar to the Forest Farms home, to allow some touristy activities, or to share the historic value of the Harlan House, or to keep the value that those who once owned the land had. In addition to that, I did want to share that this project has caused a lot of stress for the neighbors. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty, feeling as though we're not heard, but, you know, traffic has been brought up, the environmental hazards of this project has been brought up, and unfortunately, they've been mitigated in your reports. But I just want to share just Saturday, this past Saturday, somebody had an unfortunate accident right here. This is a busy street. Also, I want to share that there were 6 neighborhoods that were robbed in this area 2 years ago, in this direct area. And in addition to that, I want to say, why doesn't the developer consider downsizing the project? Why doesn't the developer consider building townhomes? Why doesn't the developer consider what's right for the neighborhood and actually listening and hearing us instead of attacking us in various ways? So I just want to thank you all for your time and have a lovely night.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Timothy Farley.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners, Chair Kuznick, and staff Cindy and Lauren Barr and Attorney Poon. You've heard from me before. I don't speak in front of the Planning Commission very often. I've lived in this neighborhood for 26 years. I moved here. I have my original West Side specific plan from 1989. Moved from Dublin after living there for 11 years and brought my kids here. Great schools in San Ramon. I'm happy to say that I now have 2 attorneys and a congressman's assistant. Shout out to Commissioner, who I won't name, but she's a Hastings grad too. I've lived here for that long a time because of 2 things. Great schools in San Ramon. My parents are both public school teachers in Richmond, and I grew up in a public school neighborhood, and that's why my kids are here, and I think that's where they are in their lives. The West Side specific plan was important to us because we really wanted the Harlan homestead to be a homestead. That's what it said in the West Side specific plan. So that was 1989. Fast forward to 1996, and it changed a little bit. And in 2011, the city council decided to do the general plan amendment, which now is not congruent with the specific plan. So my biggest objection is the applicant's land use policy. We can talk about floor area ratio. We can talk about how there's not enough parking. Don't necessarily agree with the commissioner who walked our street, but 2 sides of parking on West Side Drive with the bicycle lanes being eliminated. I think that's really risky. I don't think it's safe at all. So in closing, you can tell that I'm not a favor of the assisted living project for 2 reasons. One, it's too big. It's just too big for a 0.7 acre lot, 30,000 square feet. And without even looking at the history of the Harlan homestead, I was okay with the townhome proposition in 2011. It was fine if you want to put 2 big townhomes on there. It matched the neighborhood. But I don't think an assisted living facility or any commercial project belongs in the middle of a residential neighborhood. I want to quote Phil Alone, because he had a really, I think, important statement that he made when he was on the city council about development project that came for the city council. And what Phil said was this, says, we're trying to shove 20 pounds of cherries into a 5-pound bag. And that's exactly what's happening here. We're trying to put a project in a footprint that is so small. I thought it was fairly ironic at the February meeting when I first spoke before you that the smallest project on your table in probably many years of 0.7 acres was right next to, or right after the biggest project as part of City Walk. So I'd urge you to really seriously consider the land use policy and listen to Phil Alone's statement. Too big of a project, too many cherries, small enough bag. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Iqbal Rashid.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, thank you so much. And thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Iqbal Rashid. I'm a resident of 10 Centennial Way. I live right across from the property. And this development will impact me and my family more than almost anyone on this call. On the previous meeting, There were several people who called in to support this project, but they were from faraway land such as Danville and Dublin, who will not be at all affected by this construction. I live in San Ramon, right across from the proposed site. So please listen to me and my very strong objection and opposition to this project. On the last meeting, there was a consideration to cancel the parking alongside the West Side Drive to accommodate the requested amendment by the developer. And I find this consideration baffling. You are the Planning Commission. Your responsibility is to plan and plan responsibly. If you fear that there will be an overflow of traffic from this project, then why are you even accommodating or considering the amendment that the developer is proposing? Am I missing something? What am I not understanding? You're allowing a commercial project in a residential neighborhood, which is not appropriate. This is too big a project in too small a space. You're going against widespread public sentiments and pleas of hundreds of people in the neighboring homes. I urge the Planning Commission to deny this project's amendment that the developer is requesting and prevent this construction from happening. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Harry G. Whenever you're ready, you can speak.
Oh, sorry, I was muted, and here I am talking to myself. So thank you for telling me to unmute myself. I want to clearly state my objection to the development project. But before I start, I want to thank you all for giving us the time tonight and for giving us the 3 minutes as well. My objection really comes from that this project really is not a fit for the neighborhood. It's a 4-story construction, 1 below grade and 3 above grade. Let that sink in for a while. What on the west side of San Ramon is a 4-story construction? Nothing else, especially not in this neighborhood where everything is maximum 2-story. This will be the highest in the area. We as residents are really looking to preserve our neighborhood. And I mean, actually preserve, not like the hood ornament that someone described what the developer is looking to do with the Harlan House. Every person that has been a supporter of this developer has threatened us with alternatives of high density, low income housing, which, as we have come to understand, this developer already has in other locations within the state. So good for him. There are multiple issues with this program, with significant overreach as it relates to the West Side Plan, and I understand the differences to the general plan, where the general plan lists this property as residential, the West Side Plan does list it as a park. The issues that I have is that he is asking for an increase in the lot coverage. He's asking for an increase in the floor area ratio. And he is also asking, importantly, for a reduction in the parking allowance, which will then spew out into the streets. You as the Planning Commission have an important role to look after the interests of the city, but also more importantly, the interests of the residents. We are the ones that live within this area, right? I can only hope that Commissioner Marks was doing his due diligence when he asked for there to be an assessment of street parking. That is not what San Ramon is. If I wanted to have street parking in my neighborhood, I would go and live in San Francisco itself. We already have other senior facilities that are going into Bishop Ranch and others in San Ramon that are better fitted or better suited for that area. Let's understand what this person is asking to be crammed into a 0.7 lot, right? It is, as the previous speaker spoke, trying to cram 20 pounds into a five pound bag, right? If this developer is such a good person as it makes himself out to be, why doesn't he donate the land so that it can be a park? Or even better, why doesn't he preserve the Harlan House and actually make that the facade of the extension of the townhomes that are there already? That would be a hell of a lot better and fit in with the character of the neighborhood. Thank you. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Brijeeth Vijayan.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, City Commission, and thanks for the opportunity. This is Brijeeth Vijayan, and I live on 11 Centennial Way, this right across the property, and I have voiced my opposition multiple times in the previous hearings. And I again want to state that when I strongly oppose this project for various reasons. And I did the developers. I just want to start saying that the developer is claiming that one he's going to preserve this Harlan house, but I sent a detailed email to the city commission a month ago about the current state of the property, because I see this property from my living room multiple times a day, and I know how pathetic the condition of the current home. The planks are being totally damaged, the roof's damaged, and the developer also, in fact, agreed in his last time when he presented the state of the home. In fact, he's only planning to preserve the stairs. That is not preserving a historical property, right? He's just planning to build a prototype, not actually preserving. So that is one, it's a false claim that one he is going to preserve the historical property. Second, about the traffic maneuver that is happening in the street, like already during the busy school days, and how they are using the drivers using our driveways. So again, coming this property, if approved, with lesser parking and the parking flowing into the street, so I can imagine how worse it could be. And also, some of my neighbors already called out the accidents which is happening here. And all of those are true, because I see this day in, day out. And also the nature of this property. So the developer is trying to fit in a 84 bedroom property in a 0.7 acres land, and not even considering other viable option which fits into the neighborhood like a townhome, right? So it's all very clear that when the developer's greed, right? He's just looking for profit. And that was very evident from the previous open houses that he conducted in his property. So when, he clearly called out that one, he's looking for profit, right? But he which is fine. And I think then for such reason, he should definitely look for a better area than putting such facility and forcing into a neighborhood which is residential in nature. So again, I wanted to say that I strongly oppose this project. Please consider the neighbor's opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, that was our last hand that was raised. So,
okay. All right. I'm tentatively ready to close the public hearing, but last time we had people who tried to come in under the wire. So, all right, I'm looking at the list and seeing none. We will close the public comment. Thank you very much. And it's 8:04. We're good to go. So at this time, then, what we'll do, commissioners, is we will have our discussion. And so we are going forward. I'm sorry. Yes. Hi, Kara. You're on mute.
Hi. Sorry, I just had to unmute. Commissioners and Chair, thank you for giving me a couple minutes. I'm the historical consultant. I am available to answer any questions, obviously, but I just felt like I had to say a few words about the historic importance of this property. I think you all know it was constructed in 1858. The Harlan family were, among the early pioneer American residents of the whole county, of the whole area. Built this house, they farmed, they had orchards and a ranch, and they occupied that house for 120 years. And when we look at the images from the 19th century, we can see that even though it's in a terribly distressed condition and dilapidated, it conveys its original appearance. It really has retained most of its original qualities. Very important to history. A wood frame house from the 1850s is a vanishingly rare thing in California. A lot of counties don't have any or just have one. I think this may be the oldest house. And having said that, I also want to point out that this is a really, I'm not speaking to the care home part of it, but the preservation part of this proposed project is a very good project. I listened to, comment after comment saying that this is not historic preservation. It sounds to me that that is just a talking point that someone, told everyone to get together and say. I noticed that they did not define what they think historic preservation is. They did not have any specific criticisms about, what they would like to see, or, other projects that did consist of good preservation. I don't know, the whole thing about the stairs only being preserved. Maybe they saw different plans than what the developer provided to me, but I don't think that's true. I think the house is going to be, the plan is that the house be moved and, largely preserved as it is. So I just wanted to point those things out. And, the proposed project does conform to the standards that are typically used for rehabilitation of historic properties. I don't deny what people say, that it is in terrible condition now, and it will certainly be lost if it isn't rehabilitated soon. So and if you have any questions about the historic side of things, I'm here for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that. Okay, take care. Thank you. All right, commissioners, discussion. No discussion? Is there a motion then? All right, comments? There we go, Mr. Wallace. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll go first. Okay, what's actually in front of us today is a specific plan amendment. The application itself cannot be decided until after the specific plan is amended. So we're going to make sure we're not putting the cart before the horse.
Correct.
With respect to the zoning on this piece of property, the original west side plan did call for an 8-acre park on the west side in this general area. But what happened is in 1994, the city allowed a 180 unit subdivision to be built in this area. The consequence was that what was supposed to be an 8-acre park was reduced to 0.7 acres.
Mm-hmm.
So a number of the people who are opposed to this project are living on land that was supposed to be a park, but they wound up buying the property itself. So it's a little bit disingenuous to talk about a park when a lot of people who live there are on the remains of a park. Now, with respect to the current zoning, it's important to remember that in 2011, the city designated that 0.7 acres, not as a park, but as medium density residential. There's two things, and it came out at our last meeting. The first is, generally speaking, specific plans are designed to be consistent with the general plan, and in fact have to be. So by changing the designation from park to medium density residential, all we're doing is making the specific plan consistent with the general plan. The second thing, as Ms. Yee pointed out at our last meeting on this subject, was the general plan controls. The general plan designates this as medium density housing. So someone who owned that property could walk in today and drop an application on the planning services desk and say, I want to build 12 homes on that property. And we probably couldn't do anything to stop them because of SB 330. So I'm not saying that because some people have made comments about a threat to change it into housing. But my point is that this property is never going to be used as a park. As Mr. Carr pointed out, it's too small to meet our general plan requirements for a park. And so the question is what's going to be done with it, which is down the road. But the first thing we need to do is to change the zoning to make it consistent with the general plan. Now, I noticed, I think probably 2/3 of the people who spoke in opposition to the project itself mentioned that this type of facility, an assisted care facility, is inconsistent with a residential property. If you actually pull up our zoning ordinance, you'll find out there's a whole bunch of commercial ventures that are allowed in exactly this type of area. For example, transitional housing is permitted. So is an emergency shelter. Assisted care is allowed for both under 7 and over 7 clients. So there are actually a number of commercial ventures that are allowed under this type of zoning. The second thing that I want to mention that a number of speakers have pointed out, and Ms. Boom did in a slightly different way today, and that is the impact of an assisted care facility. There are several of us on the Planning Commission who have had elderly parents who are in assisted care facilities and who have spent a considerable amount of time in or around those, myself included. One thing that's common to every assisted care facility that I've ever been at is that it's quiet because there aren't a lot of people visiting their parents. My mother used to live at the Sunrise facility on Diablo Road in Danville, which if any of you have been over there know it's a fairly busy street. And right across is another even larger assisted care facility. But I've been in the parking lot many, many times. There maybe have only been 2 or 3 other cars. Most of the people when you walk in the front door are actually residents or staff. There are a few times holidays where there are more people, but that's an exception. As I think it was Mr. Carr pointed out, the type of people who inhabit such a structure don't generally have large, loud parties. They're just the opposite. So in terms of an impact, an assisted care facility of this type is a fairly minimal one. The last thing I want to mention has to do with the Harlan House itself. I don't know how many people that are listening to this discussion have actually been inside the house. I have. I was in the house about 10 years ago when it was in considerably better shape than it is now. And I just didn't stay in the front door. I walked through the entire house from top to bottom, every single room I went through. And it was in poor shape then. One of the things that I think that we need to do if the project ever gets approved is to assuage some of the concerns that people have about whether it's going to be a restoration or really a reproduction. I mentioned 10 years ago that it'd be a lot cheaper for people to build a Disneyland reconstruction of the Harlan House rather than try and preserve what was left of it. I think that if the project's approved, there needs to be in our conditions of approval some type of provision that allows an independent third party to review what's going on to make sure that reasonable efforts are being made to restore and correct the house as it exists to what it was back in the 1850s or even the 1920s, as opposed to simply taking it down and putting up a reproduction. The question before us is really right now is to whether to make the zoning on this parcel consistent with the general plan. At this point, I don't see a reason not to. And I think we should proceed on that basis.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Wallace. Other commissioners? Oh, Ms. Yu.
The chair, thank you. I just wanted to clarify for the record, there was a statement that was just made regarding the minimum size for parkland. And I just wanted to clarify, while we do have minimum sizes for neighborhood parks and community parks, we do have a third specialized park designation that does not have a minimum size. So the general plan wouldn't necessarily preclude a site simply because of the size of the parcel, but it's worth noting that the general plan does not rely on this site as a future park site in our general plan and our parks master plan. And so when we made that amendment in 2011 to the general plan, even though we considered that specialized recreation could be a possibility because there's no limitation for size, it was ultimately redesignated to the medium density residential. So I just wanted to clarify that's not a preclusion to put a park on this site. It's just that it hasn't been identified as a future park site as parkland in our parks master plan.
Thank you, Cindy. And I would also add to that, as having been formerly on the Parks Commission, there is a parkland, as one of the callers mentioned, that is up on top of the hill. I was up there trying to offer input as to how to develop that. So that is on the books, very close to West Side. There's also the park that is on West Side Drive as you go towards the Gateway Center. And to the residents on this part of the West Side, the Southwest Side, you guys will be the closest ones to when we get the Big Canyon, 177 acres that have been deeded over to East Bay Regional Parks. And so you guys will, be the residents in the future that are probably closest to the biggest park we're going to get in the neighborhood of San Ramon. So there are lots of parks, and it isn't a concern that we don't take lightly, but I just wanted to offer that based on my previous experience. I do have a couple of comments, and since others are not anxious to hop on, I'll share mine. Normally I go last. And I would just like to say, a couple comments. One is there is concern that this is a commercial venture. And I would just like to say that is not a product of what the city of San Ramon says. That's a state licensing requirement. And, it just happens to be a building that has lots of little small rooms with a bathroom, but because of the licensing requirement, it has to be classified as a commercial venture. You could, call it a boarding house for seniors, or think of it as a senior dormitory. And if you were charging rent, it would be, basically a similar kind of project, but the licensing requires this to be called a commercial venture. But housing maximum of 84 people is basically a residential project, despite how we have to license it. And I just would like to gently remind neighbors in the West Side, the idea that they aren't opposed to a senior facility. And with all due respect, I'd have to disagree, because prior to my coming on to the Planning Commission, the commission reviewed the memory care unit and assisted living that was proposed for the property known as the Church of the Valley. And I would have to say that residents were very much opposed to assisted senior living. So you cannot say that neighbors aren't, that they do not object to senior housing, just this one, because the record shows that really isn't accurate. And yes, we did approve the assisted facility that will be part of the Bishop Ranch, but I'd like to also remind all those who are listening, as well as my fellow commissioners, that particular parcel has no neighbors. And so consequently, it's easy to have something developed when there is no one around to object. So we appreciate your concerns. We have dutifully listened to every caller. We've read every letter. We have heard you. So we are taking this very seriously. And then finally, just this ties into what the Planning Commission just finished doing, which was our obligation to review future housing sites for the demands known as RHNA. And I would just like to say that one of the things that we also have to balance on being in this commission is, if this project is not committed to this particular care facility, and by your recommendations, that we send it off to a different parcel, well, that piece of land will impact how we're looking for housing sites to meet our state mandated housing numbers. The city of San Ramon, it is a fact that there is limited land. We have beautiful urban limit lines, so our hills are protected. But we do have to find places that we can tell the state of California that we can build housing. So it's not as simple as saying, well, this 0.7 acres, you know, we think you should find some other place. That is just not that simple. And so that is also part of the duty that we have as planning commissioners in our obligations before you tonight, and every meeting that we come. We have a variety of factors that we're balancing, and that includes our role as fellow citizens in the city of San Ramon. So those are some of the points that I wanted to share, and hope that we may have a few more comments. Thank you, Commissioner Edwards, please.
So thank you, Chair Kuznick. I want to just echo your comments about RENA and the fact that this commission has an obligation to balance competing priorities. I am so pleased to see that we still have 53 participants on this call. The amount of engagement that we've had regarding this planning application has been very nice to see. But I do want to invite the folks who have taken the time to participate in this meeting to please participate in our other hearings as well. Our last commission meeting was preceded by a meeting about housing opportunity sites, as this one was. This commission is working very hard for this community, and we do welcome your participation.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. Well said. And it does, I mean, regrettably, it did explain why we were tardy to the last meeting, because that meeting went late. Other commissioners? Commissioner Alpert, would you like to?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to also echo the appreciation for the participation and the comments. And I do believe that we have a task in front of us, and that's to evaluate the West Side specific plan amendment and the CEQA evaluation. And I do, like Commissioner Wallace, feel that we've studied the changes proposed on the West Side specific plan. I'm also comfortable that the plan changes as being recommended are reasonable, and am prepared to move forward on the West Side specific plan and reserve comments on the development application until such time that it's actually brought forward before us. But tonight, again, it's the West Side specific plan amendment that we are here to decide on.
Thank you, Commissioner Alpert. So at this time, could we move to looking at the resolution? Is there a consensus to look at the resolution? And are there any?
I found this on the web.
Oops. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Marks. I don't know what just happened. Go ahead. You're on mute.
It sounded like another commissioner was trying to talk.
I know.
I'm happy to not talk.
No, you're.
Okay. I only want to say that I agree with the comments made by Commissioners Wallace and Alpert that the issue tonight is not the project. The issue tonight is not the design. It is not whether it fits in with the neighborhood. That will come in the next few weeks. The issue is about the specific plan. And I believe that Commissioner Wallace highlighted the key points of that. And so my vote tonight will reflect what I think about the amendment to the specific plan and not anything else.
Thank you. All right, so turning to packet page 46 to look at the draft resolution that is before us. Are there comments, corrections, or changes that we think this might require? I'm not going to read every item.
You mentioned packet page 46.
I'm sorry, 43. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was trying to multitask.
Got me scared there. That was missing.
No. 43. You're right. Thank you.
Okay. If you want comments,
I do.
The third paragraph from the bottom, the whereas, it says, quote, whereas the subject property has maintained the general plan land use designation of park since 1986, but the general plan designation was changed in 2011 to medium density residential. So I'm not sure that that whereas is accurate.
Well, maybe we should refer to staff on that, because the next one says it deals with the amendments and the iteration.
Yeah, we were trying to put the whereases in sequential order, but perhaps maybe the amendment to that would be maintain the general plan land use designation of park from 1986 until it was amended in 2011.
I can live with that.
Okay. All right, very good. Turning the page. Any of the requirements here in the resolution? It's really quite detailed in the evolution of the project. Okay, next page, page 3 of 6, packet page 45. Any corrections, amendments, changes? Okay, seeing none, going on. Okay. On the next 2 pages, anything that requires our attention? All right. We get to the end. Seeing no corrections or changes. Any other further discussion on the draft resolution with the noted adjustment? Okay. Is there a motion to adopt the draft resolution to forward the specific plan amendments onto the city council? All right, Commissioner Alpert.
Yes, I'll move adoption of resolution number 01-22, resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Ramon recommending City Council approval of an amendment to the West Side Specific Plan and recommending adoption of the West Side Specific Plan Amendment and El Nido Senior Assisted Living Initial Study Mitigated Negative Declaration as amended this evening on the dais.
Very good. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. All right, Madam Recording Secretary.
Thank you. Mover, Vice Chair Alpert.
Aye.
Seconder, Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Marks.
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace.
Aye.
And Chair Kuznick.
Aye.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Is this the meeting that we have to forward into May to the chair or Commissioner Barr?
That's correct. If we could also just get an additional motion to continue the public hearing on the entitlement applications to May 3rd meeting.
May 3rd. Is there a motion to move the said hearing to May 3rd?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. All right,
Thank
roll
you.
call.
All right, mover, Commissioner Marks.
Aye.
Seconder, Commissioner Wallace.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Vice Chair Alpert.
Aye.
And Chair Kuznick.
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, it is 8:30. Would the commission like to take a 5-minute break?
As a developer, I just want to thank all of you for taking your time to do your due diligence. This is very much appreciated. I'm getting ready to get on a plane right now in an hour or so on a 15-hour journey to Machu Picchu. So it will be a long journey, but thank you so much. It will be a pleasant journey.
Safe travels to you.
Thank you.
And enjoy it. I hear it's spectacular.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
plow on or a break?
I'm okay to keep going.
You want to keep going? Okay. All right. Let's move on then. All right, moving on to item 9.2, Primrose Daycare Development Application. We have staff report by Salmana Shah, Assistant Planner.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I do have a short presentation. So today I will be presenting a summary of a staff report on the proposed Primrose Daycare Development Application. We've seen this before back in July of 2021. So I'll go over the project again just to refresh everyone's memory. So the proposed project is located at 18,080 San Ramon Valley Boulevard in the Bollinger Crossings Shopping Center. The zoning here is CT, which is commercial thoroughfare. It's located right next to the I-680 freeway, and then across the street are some residences. In the shopping center, there's a hotel, Chevron gas station, Clementine's restaurant, and then in 18,080, there's a grocery store. I think I actually have it on the next page. There's a grocery store, a dentist office, and a pharmacy. And then there was a hair salon that I believe is now going out of business. In 2017, Chevy's, which previously occupied 18,080, the portion where the proposed project is going in, actually closed. And so the tenant space has been vacant since. In August of 2020, Primrose School came to the Planning Commission with a concept review application. Following the concept review application, the applicant purchased the property. In July of 2021, the applicant came back to the Planning Commission with formal development applications. They submitted an application for the development plan and architecture review for modifications to the parking lot, to the building, and then a minor use permit for the daycare land use, and then a minor use permit to allow for the increase in retail, allowed non-retail at the subject property. So they submitted back in February, and we're back for further review. The proposed project is a 13,545 square foot daycare facility located within the Bollinger Crossings Shopping Center. And they are expanding a portion of the what was previously Chevy's to accommodate the use. The applicant is proposing to remove 22 parking spaces on the east end of the parcel to accommodate the play area that's required by state standards. And they will also be providing parking on the other side of the property in order to kind of accommodate for the loss of parking spaces. The facility will be open Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. and will accommodate 224 students. The applicant is also requesting to increase the maximum allowed non-retail uses from 25% to 54% in the Bollinger Crossing Shopping Center. So I've provided a just an image of the site plan provided to us by the applicant, and you can see the proposed daycare facility, the proposed play area, as well as the parking stalls that have been reserved for pickup and drop off. Here we have the elevations, proposed elevations, which will be reviewed by the Architecture Review Board at a later date. The zoning ordinance requires consideration of additional economic findings as part of a minor use permit application if an applicant would like to increase non-retail land uses above 25%. And so that's partly the applicant has provided a response, which is actually an attachment E, not an attachment G. But these are the findings, findings on the PowerPoint are the findings that the applicant's required to make, or that we have to make in order to approve the application. So the Planning Commission has been provided with a list of these findings as well. Moving on to safety and screening, we had some concerns at the prior Planning Commission meeting about screening of the play area. So the applicant is proposing a sound wall at the rear end of the parcel, which is the yellow line on the play area. And so that's 6-foot high masonry sound wall, which will block off the shopping plaza or the shopping center from the park and ride, the adjacent park and ride, restricting access between the two parcels, as well as screen the play area from view and help mitigate some of the noise impacts from other parcels. And then there is a fence around the play area, the blue fence, which is the black steel fence, and then that's further screened with landscaping. The applicant reached out to PG&E and provided us with some of the documentation they sent to us, and so they've revised their project plans to reflect what they've received from PG&E in terms of clearances, the location of the transformer, and then they are putting a chain link fence around the transformer. Moving on to parking and non-retail, staff has this parking analysis table, which shows that with the Primrose parking modifications, we'll have 316 parking spaces in the Bollinger Crossing Shopping Center, and the shopping center is required to provide 288 parking spaces. There's also a total square footage of non-retail uses of 54% with the proposed use. So I've kind of talked about parking. The applicant revised the traffic study to reflect some of the comments that Planning Commission has. So they provided additional information about circulation at the property, and all major intersections continue to operate at the same level of service. The applicant was also required to provide an air quality study due to the proximity to I-680. And so the air quality study provides us with mitigation measures that will decrease the exposure at the site to less than significant levels. And so these mitigation measures would be a condition of project approval. Finally, we'll talk about noise. So we've reviewed the general plan noise standards. Typical sound levels of the subject property from the freeway is about between 60 and 69 decibels. And then according to the general plan noise standards, acceptable noise level for school land use is 60 decibels. And for a playground, it's 70 decibels. So staff is recommending that we open the public hearing and provide feedback and comments on the proposed applications. And then we'll return at a subsequent meeting to address comments received and potentially with resolution or whatever else we can bring to you.
All right, is there, does the applicant wish to say something at this time? We usually hear from the applicant before we.
I was unmuting myself.
Okay.
This is John Finnemore with Primrose Schools. Just to add a few points to Salmana's good presentation. We were asked at the previous meeting to do a couple of cleanup items within our various reports because we had some contradicting square footages and so forth, which we cleared up. We were also asked, part of clearing up those discrepancies was the ages in the air quality study were not addressed correctly for the children we'll be providing service for. So we amended that, but it didn't change any of the recommendations. We're recommended to provide MERV 13 filters in the air filtration system in the building. That recommendation didn't change with the change in the age of the children. In the traffic study, we were also asked to evaluate queuing for the drop off and pickup. And the end result of that analysis was a recommendation to designate 15 parking stalls for our drop off and pickup periods, both in the morning and the PM, which we've designated on our plan. And as Salmana mentioned, we are removing some parking spots to build a playground, but we're adding some others back for a net loss of 9 stalls, but we still exceed the requirements of stalls out there by quite a few. And then what's really taken us the length of time between meetings to get back here was working with PG&E. We hired a dry utilities consultant to interact with PG&E, and they're a little slow to respond, but we also were dealing with one individual went on medical leave a couple of times, so we had to kind of reinvent our discussion with a number of people to end up with the plan we have, which basically designates where the existing easement is that we are providing access through. And then we had proposed a block wall around the transformer, but we've had to change that to a chain link fence because we couldn't put any foundations within the easement. So we're fenced instead of a block wall, but it still, will not allow children to access the actual transformer. So that's basically what we've been working on since we saw everybody last, and we're here to get further input from you, and ideally to get a vote tonight, if that's possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Any other comments from the applicant? Any questions for the applicant before we move to public comment? Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you. I actually have a question for staff. Is there a minimum number of public hearings that need to be conducted before we approve this project?
No, there's not, as long as you have the proper resolutions in place for approval.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Okay, Commissioner Alpert.
I had a question, and it's probably a site layout, and then it's a follow-up question. Do I understand correctly that the east side of the property, the wall will block off this walkway path between the shopping center and the park and ride? Did I understand that from the staff report and the diagrams correctly? There will be no way to walk from the, say, San Ramon Valley to the park and ride through the current path. Did I understand that correctly?
That is correct.
Okay, so my follow-on question, is that something that the city or the applicant or the property owner here can unilaterally do, or does that also require some cooperation from Caltrans, who operates the park and ride?
There's not an easement in place that basically allows that connection. There's just a sidewalk that would come to the midpoint of where we're proposing the playground. That's entirely on their property that was just added at some point in the past, probably just to provide additional parking that there were no easement rights for.
Okay. Second question, will Primrose provide bus service for students to their schools for pickup or drop off?
Correct, we will. The majority of it'll be an after school program. We rarely children to school in the morning. It's more of an after school program, picking them up when they get done, and providing a program until their parents pick them up.
Okay. I might have missed that in the staff report, and I apologize if I did. Perhaps we could learn more about the size of buses, the number, where you intend to park them on the lot. That would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, we would start off probably with one, maybe two buses. We buy the shorter type buses, similar to like you'd see at a hotel type bus. That I don't know the exact number of passengers, somewhere 20, maybe 20 children inside, and we'd probably park them in the least utilized stalls within the parking lot, because we don't need them very close to the building, and the front end, the drive-in stalls close to the building are most advantageous for the other users within the center.
Okay, thank you. No other questions.
Do you have any? All right, very good. Other questions, clarifying questions? Okay, I have a simple one. If you have fencing around this transformer, two questions. One is, will there be a way for the kids, if they are bouncing their ball and the ball gets on the other side of the fence, for to be able to retrieve toys? And then second question is, knowing the nature of children, particularly boys, will the fencing around the transformer prohibit them trying to climb the fence?
The first question, their main reason for them, but there'll be double gates to provide PG&E access to the transformer, which we'd be able to open to get in there to remove the toys or anything that accumulate over time. Your second question is really why we were trying to do the block wall around it, just to kind of keep the nuisance, the attractive nuisance that the transformer might be. Now we're with chain link. Hadn't really thought about that further, but we could certainly put plastic slats in the chain link fence, which kind of takes away the toe holds that I recall using in my day.
I raised sons. Okay, yes, thank you. All right, other questions? The applicant before we, all right. Seeing none, what we're going to do is we're going to open public comment. And as always, you can either use the raise your hand button or *9 on your phone, and you'll have 3 minutes. Great. I don't know, do we have any public comment?
Thank you. We did not receive any written communication for this item or late communication. And we could just give it a moment to see if anyone would like to speak. Well, if there's any hands raised, then we can go from there, but I don't see any in the audience yet. Looks like we have none.
All right, so we will close public comment. Thank you very much. All right, commissioners, now we move to our discussion. We have no discussion? This is so not like us. Okay.
So somebody has to say something.
Thank you.
So first of all, regarding the retail, that's one of the questions we're supposed to ask. I think I'm satisfied that, changing the land use to expand the retail. I think I'm still a bit concerned, or just maybe puzzled. The easement, and I asked you about it. There's a bus stop on San Ramon Valley right in front of Chevy's, and we're encouraging people to take buses and perhaps meet their partner and park and ride. Yet there's no way to walk to the park and ride to meet them, because the other entrance to the park and ride is either on Bollinger, very busy street, or between the gas station, and there's 2 signs, not one, that says no pedestrians on the ramp. So I don't know if it's possible to create a pathway from the parking lot of the hotel to the park and ride that's safe, or that people will not be climbing through the bushes in the landscape. But it seems to me that would be something that we want to at least, acknowledge and look into a bit. And then I think I also picked up in the staff report that following tonight's meeting, the Architecture Review Board will review this, and I do welcome that, because I think they provide really good feedback on projects like this, and they have in the past. So I think that was a good recommendation. I support sending it to the ARB prior to us seeing a final application.
Through the chair, regarding the comment of the connection from the shopping center and the park and ride lot, the park and ride lot is under the control of Caltrans. And so we certainly can try and reach out, but that may prove to be difficult. They may not want folks accessing through private property to get to their property, but just recognize that while they may be willing to give a point of access to the property line, there's no guarantees that Caltrans will give legal access to the park and ride lot too.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I just know that people walk that way today and will be taking it away, and not sure how we'll direct them in the future, since the only other way to get from the parking lot says no pedestrians.
Right, and the other point too is we really want to discourage those folks from the park and ride lot parking in the shopping center. If you recall, before for COVID, we did have a number of folks who had parked in the shopping center and it became a nuisance issue for the shopping center and took up the valuable parking spaces for those uses. So it's kind of a double-edged sword to encourage the connection, because folks may find themselves parking in the shopping center and then walking through the back way to get to their shuttle bus or their bus going to work in South Bay. So just
good comments.
think
Good
about.
comments. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments for staff regarding this proposal? No.
I'm looking at the next steps on packet page 63.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, staff recommends that the Planning Commission receive the staff report. We've done that. Open the public hearing, done that. And provide feedback and comments on the proposed applications, done that. Then it says, staff will return at a subsequent meeting to address comments received. And I'm assuming that the subsequent meeting is post ARB review. So is there any reason or need for us to make any type of motion to continue this hearing?
Unless we have a date certain, but is that set yet? We can the commission can just continue date uncertain. We can renotice after we concluded ARB.
Okay. All right. Seeing no other comments, and as Commissioner Wallace has pointed out, we will wait for the staff to return at a future meeting. Okay. Thank you, applicant. That was much quicker than last time. All right, moving on to the next agenda item, which is getting down to the wire here. Sorry, let me turn the page. Item 10, no, we did that. Okay, no new items. Item 10, item 11, non-public hearing action items. There are none. So we move to item 12, which is staff discussion items, status of in-person. Well, do we have any liaison reports, and then status for in-person meetings? So let's go with staff discussion items, status of in-person meetings.
All righty. Well, welcome back. Our virtual world is nearing an end, it appears. As you all have seen, the mask mandate has been lifted for non-vaccinated workers within office buildings. The council did have a discussion last week, and so they will be returning to in-person meetings beginning in April. And so I wanted to have a conversation with the commission as to how they feel about returning to in-person meetings. We would anticipate if you are ready to return back, or we can look towards the start in May. We want to give the council about 1 month back in person. And then we envision taking a stroll back to adding the commissions and then moving on to the city committees. So I'm just trying to get a temperature of the commissioners as to how they feel. The chamber is set up for social distancing. We had Gov 101 last night in the chamber, and we have these cool little banners that are on seats. Please don't sit there to maintain social distancing. We can social distance on the dais. We have actually made modifications to the dais that, if you recall, the two lower seats, if you're facing the chamber to the left, are really, really low. They've been elevated. So staff actually could sit in those two seats, giving the commission more room to spread on the dais also. So I'm just looking for some feedback and some comments from the commission tonight. We lost Rick.
Well, I had a question. At the Open Space Committee meeting on Monday, it was said that to actually make a decision on going back to in-person meetings, you need to agendize the subject for a meeting. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what came up.
It is agendized here for discussion tonight.
Okay.
Check and check.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, and the committees are going to come after the commissions. So we're starting with the commissions to get their sense of ready to go back in May, or how do you feel about that?
Debbie, I want to just confirm one thing. We'll be going back in hybrid format, is what I heard the city council say. And what hybrid means is that members of the public and potentially the applicant could be virtual, but the expectation is the council and I assume the commission would all be in the chamber. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I apologize for not bringing that. It's in my notes, but thank you for mentioning that.
No, that's okay. No, that's okay.
Yeah, it will be a hybrid model with primarily, with the focus on the in-person part of it.
Right. Okay. And to answer your question, I think assuming that the city council is successful, I am okay with coming back in May with the one ask is that we have a 30-minute practice session before whenever we come back in person. So we don't, for those of us that forgot what it was like to press the raise your hand button or, how you press the speaker button, we kind of refresh ourselves so we look like we know what we're doing when we come back in person.
And how to vote again yes, we have already talked about that. So.
And Corey hasn't been there at all. So at least I don't think you have. So Corey, you have your hand up. Go ahead. Commissioner Edwards.
That's true. I would just like to say that I do think that our public engagement has likely increased by the fact that we're doing these meetings virtually. And I do think that we should do what we can to continue to have a high level of public engagement. So to the extent that that is done via a hybrid model, or if we continue to do Zoom going forward, I'm in favor of both of those approaches.
Thank you.
I have no problem going back to in-person meetings. I guess my only concern is I'm not sure I remember how to put a tie on, but I'll practice that.
We'll send a YouTube video.
Thank you. I do have a request though, because I do have some health concerns, and that is you do have some handouts or flyers on the seats to promote social distancing. And while I trust the commissioners and the staff, I would appreciate if there was something placed on the dais facing the public saying, please don't approach the dais. Sometimes during a meeting or after a meeting, I should say, or after an agenda item, people want to come up and talk. And I would be a little bit uncomfortable with that, again, for health reasons. But other than that, I think it's time for us to come back into in-person meetings.
We will bring that comment forward. Thank you.
I do have a question too, Debbie, if I can. Suppose a planning commissioner is sick or just recovering, and a planning commission meeting is held. I'm assuming they'd be able to participate through a Zoom call or something.
Those are details we're still working out, and the executive or the governor's order has to remain in effect for the commissioners to participate via Zoom, or an amended Brown Act amended to do so. Otherwise, you need to post your residence 72 hours in advance. Alicia, anything more on that? Did I summarize that correctly?
Yeah, if the emergency orders are not in, then the traditional Brown Act teleconference rules would apply, which means that if you're going to teleconference, I think a majority has to be in the jurisdiction, so ideally present together at a meeting. And those that aren't, that want to teleconference, will have to post their location and open it up to the public. So that might be a hotel room if you want to open up your hotel room, or people have, I guess, done it before at hotels, but rather get a small conference room or meeting space, I think, to post that while they're doing their teleconference. But that's the extent of it that I know, unless that's only if we go back to no more emergency orders and the normal rules apply.
Yeah, the idea is that whatever the council does, the commissions would follow suit. So if that was established for the council, then the commission would also be avail of that. But as we were in the past, before the Zoom environment existed, if a commissioner was too ill to attend, they would just be absent for that meeting.
Okay.
Or they were out of town.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Maybe I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I had one other question, and maybe it's more of a discussion, or you can provide some advice. We're trying to go to online, staff reports, and sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not. And it works real well at home where I have my computer and a couple of monitors that I can look at. When we go back to the chamber, I'm not sure how that might work. Would we all start getting lots of paper again and bring in all our stuff, or would we be allowed to bring in electronic devices for watching this, reading things? Just some advice on how we might want to manage that in the future when we're not at home with our own stuff.
Let us give us some time to think about that. We have a little bit of time here, and these are the logistics I'm trying to understand. I know you guys have been comfortable, and we all have our big monitors on our desk too at the office. So it's actually pretty cool. Ideally, we'd like to keep everything electronic, but we do understand that iPads are smaller than what you do have more at home. So give us a bit of time to kind of think about how to deal with that.
Thanks, Debbie. I appreciate it.
Of course.
So I guess I'm the only one I didn't weigh in, and I think the earliest I'd like to see this happen would be May. And again, hoping that it's May.
Okay.
Well, there's things to work out, and there's a lot to manage, and going at it. And, well, we're still ironing out kinks. It's just another layer. So, thank you.
Well, thank you. So any further comments from the commission on this matter? All right, well, I'll return to the city manager with our discussion tonight, and we will let you know what our next steps are.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Do we have any liaison reports? I know I haven't had my meeting, but does anybody have anything they need to report? Seeing none. All right, Mr. Barr, do you have information for us?
Just the immediate needs. We have a joint meeting with the City Council on the Housing Element Study Session coming up on the 22nd. And so that's the formal meeting we know about. We are working on a couple of things that are still in flux. And so we'll update you once we pin things down.
Can you remind me what the time we set for that one?
I believe it's 5 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
5 o'clock.
And then we do have a few other things coming in the spring, but we're just going to formalize those schedules as we move along with the housing element.
Very good. All right. Anything else?
Debbie, do you want me to say, I give a brief update on the Costco gas case?
Oh my gosh, yes, that is for you to bring an update on. Thank you, Alicia.
I hope it's not anticlimactic because it's going to be like one sentence, but the city has been successful in the Costco gas lawsuit where the petitioner did not get the writ granted. It's denied, and so the city has succeeded in the Costco gas lawsuit. So
well done.
Very, very special. Lots of kudos to staff for working very hard to support our office as we navigate through getting everything inputted to the court. But we had oral arguments a couple of weeks ago, and the tentative was positive, but you just never know. So it's for you lawyers out there. So,
Alicia, did the court state why the plaintiffs were denied?
Well, basically, essentially there was. He did say if there was substantial evidence to support the city's determination, and there was, and that although you have experts, right, that were conflicting, there was still enough evidence in the record that to support the decision the city made. So essentially it came down to that. And I think, there was enough in the record. That's the best way to sum it up, is that we had a strong enough record. And a lot of that also has to do with all the hearings you guys went through. So.
Okay, thank you.
Good to know. Good to know.
And if anybody's really curious, I can pass the 9-page decision on to you if you really want to read it for fun reading. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to see a copy. Just shoot me a copy.
Yeah,
Oh, well,
I
will
would,
do.
I would as well. I would as well.
Okay. Will do.
We'll provide it to the entire commission.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Debbie has probably 3 copies we've sent to her today. So
We've been very excited.
We'll autograph one for her too. Thank you.
Just in time to get that nice sales tax generator going, given the price of gas.
The station is open, if you're not aware.
I will say that I went in there at least a week after it was opened, and I went right up to a pump. And by the time I filled my car, there was no cars in front of me. So it was faster than going to Chevron almost.
Absolutely. Do we have any update on when this traffic signal will get put in? I saw that part of it in the city manager's report.
Yeah, it's actually in process right now.
Okay.
They ran into some issues with electrical connections and the like. The engineering services folks collected a performance bond to keep them honest on it, but I would expect it to be within the next 30 days or so.
Okay, because the 4-way stop, people just are, it's a bit of a challenge, shall we say.
Again, I'll throw an asterisk on that, PG&E dependent.
Very good, excellent. All right, ladies and gentlemen, seeing nothing else, and as much as I enjoy your company, we are adjourned at 9:08. Thank you, one and all. Appreciate everyone's hard work and commitment to doing great work. So thank you, staff. I know I'll see Gary tomorrow. At least I think I'll run into him. Don't know if anybody else is going, but I'm going to the Planning Academy tomorrow.
I think Commissioner Edwards will be joining the Academy training too.
Excellent.
Good.
Wonderful. Corey, we can meet live and in person.